Hello, my name is jholloman and I'm going to show you how to care for your pet ball python. Okay, you see right here next to me is my snake's terrarium. You can kind of see my snake, he's right here, his name's Venkman. This is a 10-gallon tank, it's made of glass, and the reason it's only 10 gallons is because my snake's not very old, he's 4 to 6 weeks old, about 1.5 feet long, so he doesn't really need a whole lot of space right now. But when he's halfway grown, he'll be about 2 to 3 feet long, which means he'll need a bigger tank, about 50 gallons. And when he's full grown, he'll be about 4 to 6 feet long, and he'll need a 100-gallon tank. So he'll have plenty of free space to move around through the tank. Always make sure that your tank is big enough for your snake. You don't need him to be cramped. The next thing is his bedding. This is his bedding right down here, all this stuff all over the bottom of the tank. And this one's made of coconut husks. We chose this one because it's really absorbent and it holds moisture better than a lot of other kinds. But you don't have to have this particular kind. There's all kinds of different beddings you can get at a pet store. And another important thing about the bedding is to make sure it's a decently thick layer so that the snake can burrow into it and hide if he wants to, because snakes don't always like to be exposed. So make sure there's enough for him to do that. The next important thing is his water. Right over here is his water bowl, and snakes do drink water, but they don't drink a whole lot. But the water mainly is for him to cool himself down in, because snakes are cold-blooded and their internal body temperature isn't regulated naturally like a human being's is. So they need some sort of outside source to control their body temperature. So when he gets too warm, he'll come over here and he'll climb into his water bowl and cool himself down. This cord right here leads to a heating pad that's underneath this part of the tank. It's about this wide, and it runs to the back of the tank. And it heats it right here so that when it gets too cold over here, he can come to this side of the tank and warm himself up. And the same thing, he'll go back over here when he's too warm and cool himself down in the water. The next thing that's really important to remember is a healthy eating schedule. This snake at this size needs to eat about once a week. We fed him 3 days ago, so he's good for another 4 days. But right now he eats small mice, and it's good to remember the size of the rodent that you put in there is proportionate to the size of the snake. If I was to put in a full-grown mouse or a small rat in here with him to try to get him to eat it, it's likely it could kill the snake. So remember that you don't put something in there that's too big for your snake to handle. And another important thing about his eating is once you feed your snake, don't handle him for about 2 days after he eats, because he'll be slow and he'll be kind of cranky, because snakes, they're kind of vulnerable after they eat while they're digesting, so they don't like to be touched and they don't like to be around other animals. So remember not to handle him for at least a couple days after you feed it. The next thing that's really important is the moisture. It's good to keep your tank at about 50% moisture. And the reason for that is because, for one, it's more comfortable for the snake, and two, when all that moisture is in there, it helps to sink into the snake's skin and make sure that it sheds right. Because when a snake sheds, and it sheds about 4 to 5 times a year, it's good to have that moisture in there so that the snake skin comes off completely off its body. If it doesn't come off right, and it's too dry inside of there, it's only going to flake off, and it's not going to peel off in one solid piece like you would see a snake skin out on the ground. It'll come off in flaky little bits, it'll be itchy and irritating for the snake, and it's not very good. You'll have to take the snake, you'll have to soak him in water for an hour or two to try to get that moisture back in the skin to properly peel the snake skin off. And also, you'll notice the eyes, there's little eye caps on a snake's head over its eyes, and if those don't come off when it's shedding, they may still come off later on, but if they don't come off by the second time he sheds again, then that means you need to take him to a vet or someone that is a snake handler to help get them removed so that the new clear eye caps can come through, because you won't be able to see very well until those come off. The next thing that's really important is the handling. It's really not necessary at all to handle your snake. In fact, most snakes don't even want to be handled. But if you really like to handle snakes, I do. I like to handle my snake when my friends come over. I'm like, here's my snake, you know. But you don't really have to do that. But if you do handle your snake, it's important to remember to wash your hands, because snakes are known to carry salmonella. So especially if you have cuts on your hand or anything like that, don't handle your snake. If you're going to pick it up, put gloves on or something that'll protect your hand if you have any kind of open wounds, because that is really dangerous. Plus, if you're handling your snake, don't do it a whole lot. If you want to pick it up and take it out of the tank, that's fine, but do it only about maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Just enough to make sure that you make the snake understand that you're its handler, you're not a threat to it, and make sure the snake understands that if you happen to reach in there with a mouse to drop it in there for him to eat, he's not going to immediately strike your hand assuming that it's a threat to him or a threat to take its food or think that your hand is food. So make sure that your snake understands who and what you are and that you're not going to try to hurt it. But just don't overdo it when handling your snake. That pretty much covers everything you really need to know to make sure you take proper care of your ball python.